Good evening, happy alive, happy Wednesday, happy tornado watch warning. Hence why I have messy hair and just a t-shirt on, because it's a tornado watch, so I'm not dressing up. I hope you guys are all safe and well, and I'm going to do my normal today, which is go over your guys' questions. And if you want to ask any additional ones, feel free to write them in the chat. Otherwise, I'll just go over some that have come in throughout the week, as well as go over your real estate update, and then do some happy news, okay? So again, this is Wednesday Live. This is the tornado version. And any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I'm just going to jabber away and again, go over some questions that have come in throughout the week, okay? All right, so the first question comes from Declan and Jennifer, and Declan and Jennifer are in Barrie. So they said, we currently rent and have lived at the same home since we were 21. The owner wants us to buy it, but we're leery that we're overpaying. Should we go off of what House Sigma says as the estimated value? Thank you, Declan and Jennifer, for asking. I personally wouldn't go off of that because, say, for example, it's a townhome. House Sigma goes off of the average sales price in the area. So let's just say there's 6 townhomes surrounded by a bunch of detached homes. It's going to pull the average of all those detached homes as well. And then if you go off of that and the owner of your property where you currently rent says, oh, look, it says it's this price, but it's going off of all the detached, then you have just overpaid. So if you can get a realtor to help you and show you, similar townhomes. Again, I just use townhomes as an example, but similar to your property, whether that's a townhome or what have you, so you can make sure that you're not overpaying would be perfect. And then let's just say a realtor says, for example, your home is worth $700,000. If you're not using real estate, then just take that into consideration that he is not paying that extra commission to a realtor. So that should be passed on to you for savings. So just say, hey, this realtor said the house is worth $700,000 plus you're saving 5% or whatever it is. So therefore it works out to X. So therefore we only want to pay X. Okay. So thank you guys for asking. So there was a 25-year-old. He was is, I should say, a pizza delivery man. So he was out on one of his routes and he saw a 2-story home on fire, and there's no fire trucks or anything. He ran inside and he started screaming and so forth, found an 18-year-old and 3 kids that had just come to the top of the stairs. So he helped them out, and then he asked them if that was all of them, and they said, no, we can't find our 6-year-old sister. So he ran back inside. At this point, he had massive burns and so forth, but he didn't want to leave without the 6-year-old. He couldn't find her upstairs. He ended up going to the main floor, which was where the fire was the worst, and he took his shirt off and he put it on like his mouth like a mask kind of, and he crawled around on the floor, and there was, I guess, screams on the first floor, and found her, and he was airlifted to a hospital. He is okay. The little girl is okay. The other people are all okay. And somebody started a GoFundMe for his hospital bills. They thought they might get like $5,000 or $10,000 or something like that. And he got over 556,000 US. So that was pretty cool. And obviously those 4 kids plus the 18-year-old are super happy that they're alive. Again, so I jump around. If you guys haven't seen this before, I do questions from you guys as well as happy news, and then I do the real estate in the middle, okay? Okay. So next question comes from Becky in Guildford. So Becky in Guildford, what did she ask? Becky in Guildford said, my sister and I own together. She has met someone and is now engaged. She wants to sell so she can buy with him, but I don't want to, but I can't afford to buy her out. What should I do? Becky, if possible, maybe you can see if you guys could just get a line of credit, and whether you can do it. Like I know you said you can't afford to buy her out, but maybe you guys jointly could get a line of credit, and then, she could use half of it towards money with her fiance and buying a home, and you could use half of it for whatever, whether you put it down on your side. I don't know how you guys have the mortgage set up, but you could put it down on your side of the house so your principal is less, etc. Or maybe you need a new car or something like that, or maybe you have like some OSAP loans, etc. But maybe you guys could do that, because it's not ideal if you still want to stay in the home, and so that kind of sucks. But that's really the only way besides selling it, is seeing if you can get a line of credit. And like you said, you can't afford to buy her out, so I'm assuming you've already looked at doing it yourself. So maybe you guys can get it together, and then she takes half and you take half. I don't know if that would work for you, but hopefully it does. I wish you the best of luck. The next thing was a 2nd grade teacher. So there was a 2nd grade teacher, and she also was a volunteer at a animal hospital. And Basically, she said that the dogs normally get adopted within 3 weeks, but if they're older dogs or if they have health concerns, which makes me think of my dog Charlie, because he was in foster care for 8 months. He has 3 legs and he has like kidney and gallstones issues, etc. And they only hold him a certain amount of time before they euthanize them. So this teacher didn't want that to happen. So she said, hey class, there's 24 pets. There happens to be 26 of you guys. Why don't we each pair up, kid with a pet, and there's obviously a couple extra kids, but kid with a pet, hang out with the pet for the day, and then write a little blurb about the pet and draw a picture. So they did that, and they said, like, I like licks, or I like running around the yard, or I like my belly scratched, or whatever, and then they drew a picture of the dog. And within the first week, 20 of the 24 hard-to-adopt pets were adopted. So I just thought that was cute. And she encouraged other people, other teachers, if they want to do that with their younger students, etc., just to help. Because obviously so many people have gotten a dog during COVID, and now they can't have the dog, or they're back at work too much. So I just thought that was cute. There was a couple more just before real estate. Jackson from Innisfil had a question. So Jackson said, my wife and I saw a home we liked at an open house, but the agent said they wouldn't take an offer conditional on the sale of our home. Is that allowed? Thank you, Jackson, for asking. So the seller can do whatever they want. They can say, hey, we don't want conditional on the sale of another property. There's no rules that they have to accept your offer or they have to not accept your offer, etc. It is up to their discretion. So if they decide they don't want to take conditional, it's called SPP, sale of purchaser's property, then they don't have to do so, okay? So there's no rule that says you have to take our offer. You could give them, for example, $50,000 over asking or whatever. They don't have to take your offer, even if it was firm and had no conditions, okay? So there's no rules of what they have to take. As long as they don't sign it, they don't have to sell it to anybody. So some people say, oh, they have to take it because they listed their house, which is not true. They could get way over asking, firm offers, etc., and they don't have to sell it to anybody, okay? The only thing they can't do is sell it to somebody, sign their name, the person comes to move in, and they go, oh, I changed my mind, you have to go away, okay? Thank you guys for asking. One more thing before real estate. So in technology, they're always thinking of, ways it can help and so forth. So in Spain, there are 22 beaches that now use drones to help people. So they actually drop off life vests. So obviously, lifeguards are on their way over, etc. But sometimes seconds can mean, life and death of somebody who is out in the current and quickly getting waves over them, etc. So there was just a 14-year-old that was recently saved by this drone, again, dropping the life jacket, etc. So I just thought it was cool. One, because obviously it saved his life. And two, because I just like, they're just saying, okay, what other way can we help technology? Not just, cook us an egg while we sit on our butt, but an actual way that's good for humanity and saving people. So I like that. So I'm going to do real estate now. Again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to jump in. Hi, Kennedy. Hi, Dave. Hi, Marcy. Can't see everybody. Again, if you have questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I will just ramble away. Okay, so I'm sure you've heard different percentages and different things down, etc. And they're like, this is down this percent, this is going to crash, this is blah, blah, blah. So one of the new ones that they're saying is that, hi, Kennedy. One of the new ones that they're saying is the average sales price in Canada. So it's now $665,800, which is down almost 20% since February. But the problem with a lot of these articles is they don't say what it was last year. So they're like, oh, down, July from June or June from May, etc. Or they say the amount of homes sold is less, but they don't say that the actual home price, that people are paying is more because they just like the doom and gloom, okay? So yes, the average sales price in Canada is now $665,000 and change, which is about 20% less than February. However, they're not comparing it to last year, okay? So if you're reading doom and gloom, etc., try and make sure that you're seeing the full picture to see what is in actuality being said. Because again, normally it is just the number of homes sold, not the actual sales price, okay? So that was something saying, 20% down across Canada, but in reality it was just, yes, compared to February, but not compared to last year, okay? What else? So yeah, if, for example, staying on that note for a little bit, if you did buy in February or January, etc. of this year, and you're a first-time buyer and you sold right now, would you lose? You would, unfortunately. However, if you bought last year or the year before, etc., then it's a different story. Same within 2017. If you bought in January, February, March of 2017, and then you sold in May, June, July, etc. of 2017, you lost as well. But then it came up in the fall, etc. I'm not saying it's coming up in the fall because obviously I don't know what the interest rates are doing, and there are 3 more times this year it could go up. But I'm just saying this isn't the first time it's happened, and we always get more inventory this time of year, so it is common to happen, okay? But they like to say the whole doom and gloom thing. Okay. What else was I going to say? So the main thing that is slowing the market right now is the massive amount of inventory as well as the interest rates. So the massive amount of inventory is people reading all the doom and gloom and then being like, oh, the market's crashing, I better get out before it crashes, I better leave the province, country, etc. So we do have more inventory than normal. However, we always have more inventory in the summer because most people don't want to move when there's 3 feet of snow, right? So because we are in snow belt, etc., a lot of people, again, don't want to move when there's 3 feet of snow. So we always have more inventory this time. So we have more inventory this time of year, which is normal, but we also do have some extra because people are believing all the doom and gloom stuff. So we do have some extra of that as well, okay? And then obviously the interest rates. So like I said before, or maybe I didn't say, I forget, that it did go up the 1% on the 13th of July, which was the highest at once that it's gone up since 1998, okay? So 24 years. Okay, so the average home price, you know how I said before, $665 now is the average home price. Back in February, it was $795, okay? So $795 to $665. But if you actually look at every year in the past, it commonly is higher in January, February when there's no inventory, and then lower in the summer, and that's just the way it goes, okay? So Ontario has so far had the most correction versus any other province or territory, and BC is second highest for correction just because obviously things went so crazy during COVID. However, do not worry, it is nowhere near what it was at the beginning of COVID or before COVID. So there was one economist that said, yeah, oh, here's gone down 3%, here's gone down 7%, etc. But on average, the average home has gone up over 50% since the beginning of COVID. So yeah, you went up 50% and now you're only at 47 or you're only at 43, big whoop-de-doo, you're still up that crazy amount. When in the past, obviously, you can ask your parents, etc. Sometimes it took years and decades to even get to that, okay? So what else? Some people are hoping that the prices go down even more and so forth. The problem with that is because interest rates are going up. So yes, you might buy a home for, let's just say $550 instead of $625 or $630, etc. But because interest rates have gone up, your payment might be very similar, even more at that point, as well as you might have then paid a mortgage for X amount of months, 6 months, 8 months, etc. So you need to weigh all of your options, okay? Now, what else? Some people we still are seeing leaving the province, right? So they're like, hey, gas is expensive, groceries are expensive, so we're still leaving the province. So we still do have a fair amount of that. And then there's other people that are just taking advantage and they're like, hey, we saw this house for sale in January, similar, for 1.4. Now we can get it for 1.15. We're going to buy it now. And even if it goes from 1.15 down to $1 million, we know it's going to go back up to 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, etc. And we're not planning on, moving a month later anyways or what have you. So that is something as well. What else? You know how I was saying not only will it potentially cost them more per month, but because of the 2% that they have to get approved for above the current interest rate, that just means they either have to make more a month or they have to buy for less. And a lot of people don't want to buy for less, and they're not just getting these massive raises. So that is a bit of an issue when people are like, hey, well, I still want to buy for X price, even though with the interest rate change and the extra 2%, they can't afford that anymore. So right now, people have to qualify around 6% because the rate is just around 4. I know the rate is around 2.5, but I'm just saying in the fixed world, it's still around 4. So they have to be approved with their debt to service and so forth around 6, which is harder for people. So it is harder for people to get mortgages right now. There was an economist that said first-time buyers are stuck between a rock and a hard place. So they're saying the rock is the current market, even though it has softened a bit. And then they're saying the hard place is the interest rate. So that is what they're saying, or this one said I should say, about first-time home buyers. And it is thought that in the next 5 years or so, the interest rates could go up about 30%. So what would 30% look like for majority of people? So if, for example, your mortgage right now was around $2,500, that would be about $3,250 a month. If your mortgage rate was around $3,000, that would be around $3,900 a month. If your mortgage was around $3,500, it would be around $4550 a month. And if your mortgage was $4,000, it would be about $5,200, just so you're aware, okay? So some people are, that's why they're saying, hey, we're going to get out of the province. Other people are saying, hey, we're going to put in a basement apartment, which will pay more than that. Some people are saying, hey, we'll have a roommate, or my sister will move in, etc. So everybody's doing different things, or they're taking on extra jobs, or they're spending less at Starbucks, etc. So everybody is planning it out differently. So they are expecting it to go up on average in total to about 4.4 or 4.5% is what they are currently saying, which is about 2% higher than the current rate, which is a 2.5 from Bank of Canada. Okay, so if it was 4.5, for example, then they'd have to, be approved at the 2% higher. And again, if it is the fixed, then it says even higher than the variable. Okay, I'm not going to go into all of that, assuming you guys know some of that, or I could jump on a call or something with somebody separately just because it's kind of detailed. So because people's income and debt to service ratio has been tested at the 2% rate hike already in the past, so the stress test, so they're saying unless somebody loses their job or unless somebody has extensive spending habits, they're still going to be fine with the rate hikes because they've already been tested with that 2% higher. So again, unless you went out and bought a Lamborghini or one of you lost your job, etc., then you should still be fine with the increase in mortgage rates. Okay? All right. So almost 2 out of 3 Canadians do own their home. They don't rent. And then over 30% of people in those homes still have mortgages, and surprisingly a lot do not. But I would assume it's the older generation, but who knows? So most people obviously don't get a 6.7% raise per year, but that is what basically inflation has gone up. So the average nurse and teacher didn't even get 1.7% raise this year, let alone 6.7. So they're saying on average, most families have to cut back on their spending about 5% this year just to make it make sense, okay? Because it is a 31-year high in inflation. So some banks are not even going to raise their mortgage rates, not their mortgage rates. They're not going to raise the payments to their clients. So let's just say the clients, we're paying $2,500 and it was going to jump to $27, for example. They're not going to put it to $27. They're going to keep it at the $25, but they're just going to extend their amortization. So let's just say there were 21 years. Now they might be 23 years. I just made that up. I don't know if that's the way it actually equates, but they are thinking of doing that for some. And then there's some seniors that are like, hey, I was going to retire September 2022. Now I'm not going to retire till March 2025 or something like that, just to get some extra funds, etc. So some people are starting to plan out different ways that they can get more money. There was a recent study, and basically it said that more people are affected by the real estate market, and not saying because the real estate market goes up and down, but just because less people own stocks or bonds. So that's why. So it's not about them going up and down, because stocks and bonds on average do go up and down much more than real estate, but just more people are invested in real estate. So that's why they're more affected if something happens to it. So what else? I think I said already, if you're not aware, the benchmark rate is 2.5 right now, and the current rate is about 5% for fixed, so you have to get approved at about 7%, so your debt to service. So they look at how much you make every month versus how much you spend, your car payment, your child support, your college loan, your cell phone, your utilities, maybe paying back old debt for a visa or something like that. So they're going to look at all of that at about 7%, and you have to come in their acceptable rates, because they don't want you to make $100 a month and spend $95 a month. So that obviously doesn't look good for them because you spend too much. So if something happens, you can't afford it. Let's see. So compared to June of last year, because I know that we're in August, however, we don't have July statistics yet. It won't come out probably till about mid-month. So when we compare June of 2022 to June of 2021, it was still up in Simcoe County, just teetering around 20%. Obviously, depending if you're in Oro, Barrie, Innisfil, etc. So that's still amazing. Even when people are like, oh, it's down 24%, so the number of homes sold in Canada were down 24%. However, in Simcoe County, the average sales price was still up on around 20%. Again, depending on the community and so forth, obviously the style of home, etc., but it's still up on average 20%, okay? So economists don't predict that there's going to be another big drop. Yes, some places have said, oh, we've already experienced 20%, etc., again, depending on where it is. But they say because of the amount of immigrants coming to the country continuously and still our lack of housing, okay? So that is what majority are saying. It depends who you believe and what you read, because there's so many saying different things, but majority are saying that. I was saying about that article that said about 24% of homes being down. So that was in all of Canada. So last year there were 63,280 sold by the end of June. And then this year there were only 48,170 by the end of June. So that's when they're saying 24% less homes are sold. However, the average sales price, they don't look at everything. Okay. So far to date in Simcoe County, 2,447 homes have been sold, which is down 33%, 33.6 to be exact. However, the average sales price was $924,830 to be exact. 924, I just like to say. And that's up 9.7% over last year. Okay, so 9.7% over June of last year. So it's not crazy doom and gloom, which lots of people think, and it currently looks like doom and gloom outside my house, the tornado warning. So if people are not worried about the interest rates, etc., on the opposite spectrum of things, there is a home for sale in Whistler, BC for $39 million. And the most expensive one in Ontario is $37.5 million. In Mississauga, it has 7 bedrooms and 14 bathrooms and a 15-car garage, if you are interested. And at least we are not, or we don't have in Simcoe County, any of the most overvalued real estate. So currently they just did a whole analytics study and so forth, and supposedly the most overvalued town or city in Ontario is Peterborough. So sorry, Peterborough, to throw you under the bus like that, but I didn't do the analytics, they did. So the average person makes in Peterborough, not average person, the average household income, dual, husband, wife, or husband, wife, and wife, or what have you that lives in the home, is 70,000 and change, and the average home there is over 836,000, which does not make much sense. They also did another study, the same company, and they were trying to see hey, if somebody does make about 70,000 a year as a joint income, can they afford, for example, to live in Toronto, where the average sales price is around $1 million? So it's more to get into a semi in Toronto and a detached, etc. But because there's so many condos, that average is still around $1 million. So can you make 70,000 as a joint couple in Toronto and own a house? No, you can't. I'm sorry. If you get money from your parents, can you buy a house in Toronto? You still can't. So on average, they said to service that debt ratio, you should be making around $200,000 a year. Okay, so if you want about $1 million mortgage, you need to be averaging about $200,000 for it all to make sense. So sorry if that sucks for some people, but I am just being real with you guys. Okay. So what did they basically say from that? What do people have to do if they do want to buy? They have to compromise. So they either have to compromise and they have to commute somewhere, move somewhere farther, etc., move to a neighborhood that they didn't like, or they wanted a detached, now they can't get a detached or something like that. So compromise, or location-wise, or if they say we don't want to commute, they need to buy with somebody. Maybe they buy with 2 of their best friends or their sister and their mom or something like that. So they need to compromise, because otherwise it's not going to work. On average, just over 30% of people, first-time buyers, do have help from their parents, and it's either all of the money or part of the money. So that is a large chunk of people. So next question comes from Charles from Barrie. So Charles from Barrie said, my wife and I love boating, but by the time we pay for our marina, wrapping every year, and so forth, it gets really expensive, not even counting the gas. Would you suggest living on the water instead? A waterfront property. Sorry, I read that wrong. Thank you for asking, Charles. A lot of people do consider that, because they're like, hey, if I'm paying $7,000 for my boat slip fee every year and so forth, that could be going towards my property tax at my waterfront home, etc. So a lot of people will consider doing that. Let's just say they're paying $5,000 where they live, plus $7,000 for their marina fee, etc. It's $12,000 that they could be paying to live at the water. And so that is something that you could look into. Obviously, I don't know where you live and your house value and how much equity you have and so forth, but it could be a possibility for you. I can't fully answer that, but it is common, and you would not be the first person to do it if you did. But wishing you well on that journey. So next thing is a 22-year-old man. He was visiting his mom in Haiti, and he was going to university in Texas. And any time that he went to see his mom, there was an orphanage close by, and he used to always bring stuff for the kids. So he went the one time, he brought the stuff for the kids as normal, and he saw a bunch of people around, he didn't know what it was at the time. So he kind of moved his way to the front. He saw there was a garbage can, and turns out there was a 4-month-old baby in the garbage can. Nobody had picked up the baby. They were all just kind of talking about what to do with the baby and so forth. So he picked up the baby, took the baby home. His mom bathed him, it was a little boy, bathed him and gave him milk and put clothes on him and so forth. And now fast forward to 5 years later, the little boy is in kindergarten. The 22-year-old has finished university. And I forget what he named the son, Emilio. He named him Emilio. He said he had no idea going to the orphanage that day would change his life, but he's very happy that it did. So I just thought that was cute. Next question comes from Donna in Oro Medonte. So Donna in Oro Medonte said, do you think it is wise to sell now and then wait to buy? So Donna, a lot of people, to be honest, are doing that. So we have a lot of people that are selling and, like I said, either leaving the province or country. And then other people are selling and renting and waiting to buy, thinking that the prices will be lower. And they, are trending that way. But again, just take into consideration everything. So if the interest rates goes up, or the interest rate goes up, for example, that 2%, etc., maybe just get on a mortgage calculator and see what your mortgage would be right now, and see if it was 2% higher, what your mortgage would be. Because let's just say it's $700 more a month. I don't know, obviously, depending on what price point you're buying in, but let's just say it was $700 more a month. And then you paid, $2,300 a month in rent in that whole time and blah, blah, like work it all out, right? So you're like, hey, it's going to cost me this amount a month. I'm going to have spent this amount in rent, but the house will be down. It might all come out in the wash. So you just kind of need to do your homework a little bit, because I don't know what price point you're buying in and so forth. So if you're locked in right now for 90 days, but it did happen to go up by that 2%, etc., and the house had gone down 80,000, etc., you just need to see if it makes sense for you, okay? But you're not the first person to possibly think of doing that, and I hope that you get the right answer in the end when you do all your homework, okay? The next thing is free solar panels. So unfortunately, it is not in Ontario, but let me see where it was. It's in Delaware. So if you make less than $46,000 a year in Delaware, they're giving you free solar panels. It's a 2-year pilot program. If you make more than $46,000, but you're still in a moderate income, they will pay for 70% of your solar panels. And then basically they just want to help people get money every month to go towards utility bills and groceries, etc. They said after the 2 years, if it goes well, they're going to do other states. And then after 2 years of that, then they would move to Canada if it all works out. So I just like different things. So next question comes from Daryl in Washago. So Daryl in Washago said, I have a fair amount of equity in my home. I don't know if I should sell and then buy 2 places or refinance and buy one somewhere else. Thank you, Daryl, for asking. It just depends. Do you like your home? Some people would say sell it now while it's higher and buy 2 next year when it's less, or stay in yours now, refinance, and then buy when it's less or whatever. Everybody's different what you say, or sorry, who you ask and so forth. But again, just keep in mind that if you do buy then and the interest rates are higher, it might cost you the same every month. So you might have saved $80,000 off the top. The house is $80,000 less than it is right now, but then the interest rates makes the payment the same. So then you didn't do anything. So it's hard to say. It kind of depends on the whole picture of what you want to do. But I'm sure you'll figure it out, and thank you for asking. So there was a 7-year-old. I say a 7-year-old to the rescue. So there was a little boy. He went down to the pool in his building. I have a pool in my building, for example. He went down to the pool with his mom and his aunt. He jumped in the water and noticed that there was a child in the water, under the water with his eyes open and mouth open. He grabbed the 3-year-old, brought him up, and the aunt started to do CPR on this toddler. I don't know where the parents were of this toddler or how long the toddler was in the water. Obviously, fire and paramedics and all that were called, and the child did live, thankfully, but all because of the 7-year-old's love of water, and then obviously not being afraid to take action and help this little boy. So I just like that because I like anything like that. So that's that. Anyways, if you guys have any questions about our 1% listing or anything like that, feel free to call our office at 705-726-7000. Again, 705-726-7000 for our 1% listing commission. We also have our free trailers and boxes and moving tape for our clients. I hope you guys have a super safe evening, a lovely evening. Thank you for popping in, and any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Take care.